Jesse James is the 35th adventure of Lucky Luke, first published in 1969. Created by René Goscinny and Morris, the comic is a cartoonish interpretation of the infamous outlaw of the Wild West, Jesse James. The comic was adapted by Hanna-Barbera's animation studios in 1984. How faithful was this adaptation? Let's spot the differences. The comic begins with a 3-page visual synopsis about the character of Lucky Luke and his very special horse, Jolly Jumper, showcasing the cowboy's talents of shooting, riding, bravery, and remaining cool to unnerve his enemies. The adaptation starts with Luke being so bored that he has shot holes in all his loose change. Then, as in both sources, he and Jolly Jumper trot into the sunset, which the horse comments upon.
If something doesn't happen quick, this is going to be an awfully short story.
Here, Luke's farewell song is interrupted by 2 detectives, dressed in black suits with bowler hats and big moustaches. I think Hergé is going to sue.
Precisely.
The men in black state they work for the Wolverton Detective Agency. In the comic, they work for Pinkerton, a private detective agency founded in 1850, which still exists today.
That stable owner recognized us too. These Texans are quite perceptive.
Cosmo Smith and Fletcher Jones say they are trying to keep their identities a secret, but from their appearance, everyone who sees them knows they are policemen. In the episode, they repeatedly attempt to disguise themselves, which only serves to make them stand out more, a la another pair of mustachioed investigators. The Pinkertons' involvement within this cartoon is because, in real life, the Pinkerton agency tried but failed to catch Jesse James and his gang in the mid-1870s.
No one suspects a waiter of being a detective.
Say, Jesse, why are those detectives serving the lemonade?
Jesse James wants to be known as a modern-day Robin Hood by stealing from the rich and giving to the poor. But as soon as he gives the box full of dollars to a man who has lost all his possessions in a game of poker, he robs the poor man of his stolen wealth. In the adaptation, the man was driving the rich man's cart, and is wearing more than just his long underwear. Jesse's brother Frank solves the dilemma by convincing him to share the money with him, thus they can take turns at being rich and poor. Frank James's gimmick in the comic is that he regularly quotes Shakespeare, whom the real Frank James was apparently a fan of. To make their gang a trio of merry men, they get their cousin Cole Younger to join them in their thievery. In reality, Cole Younger was not a relation of Jesse and Frank, and they joined his gang of outlaws, featuring Cole's brothers Jim, John, and Bob.
We got the loot! Hey, give me a hand, guys! I'm stuck! Thanks!
In Nothing Gulch, Lucky Luke warns the townfolk that the James gang are rumoured to have left Missouri and are now in Texas. The town claim not to be frightened, but when it is confirmed Jesse James is nearby, they panic. In the adaptation, the engineer knows his train was just attacked by the James gang, so it makes no sense that Luke and the Wolvertons say they cannot arrest the gang until they are caught committing a crime in Texas, when they have a train full of witnesses.
You was right, gents. The James boys are in Texas causing trouble, and I aim to stop them.
We're not here to cause trouble.
See that you don't, then. Enjoy your stay in Texas, gents.
That was easy.
By derailing a train incorrectly, the steam engine arrives in Nothing Gulch, but not at its station. In the adaptation, Luke, Jolly Jumper, and the detectives are on board the off-railed Longhorn Limited, without establishing what happened to the train's crew or passengers. Also, Cole is strong enough to bend 2 steel rails without help from his horse.
Better keep an eye on the tracks.
Better keep an eye on the tracks. That train will be here soon.
Years later, Luke would trick the Dalton brothers into bending both rails, which resulted in the same runaway off-railed locomotive. As the James gang have not been caught committing any crimes in Texas, neither Lucky Luke nor the Pinkertons have the authority to arrest them. Our hero gives the gang a warning, and demonstrates his smart shooting by shooting a cigarette out of his galloping horse's mouth. As only villains were sometimes allowed to be shown smoking in children's media by the 1980s, Luke instead shoots an apple on top of Jolly Jumper's head.
Care for some lemonade?
Don't mind if we do. Being Jesse James is thirsty work.
The townfolk are momentarily reassured when one wealthy man, named Sam, points out there is no poverty in Nothing Gulch, thus the James gang won't have reason to rob them, until the local hobo Clem arrives. In the comic, the townfolk initially decide to solve the issue by hanging Clem, but Luke stops them. So instead, they each give him a fistful of dollars.
Anybody spare a dime? I'm flat broke.
Hey, here, take this money.
Yeah, we don't want to give the James boys any reason to rob us.
Jesse, Frank and Cole convince the townfolk that they don't intend to rob them by doing many good deeds. In the comic, Cole and Frank make the town relax by telling jokes, joining the choir, reciting Shakespeare, and putting money into the bank.
Well, don't that beat all, Lou? The James boys taking money into the bank instead of out.
Eventually, the villains trick Lucky Luke into leaving town so they can finally rob it by sending a telegram from the Pinkertons asking him to meet them at Dead Fish Creek. Our hero arrives to find the detectives handcuffed to a tree. In the comic, Smith and Jones had not been seen for almost 20 pages. Almost 50% of the book's length, while in the episode they have practically been by Luke's side ever since their introduction. In the comic, after freeing the Pinkertons, Luke tells them to wait for him and the James gang at the Oklahoma border. On the last page, we see the detectives are waiting, but at the Arkansas border. In the adaptation, the Wolvertons continue to appear throughout the remaining 25% of the story.
Disguised as prisoners, we can keep a close eye on this ruffian.
Galloping back to Nothing Gulch, Luke sees Clem is riding away from the town, because he's now the richest man in Nothing Gulch, due to the villains stealing everyone's money from the bank. He knows they are going to rob a train next, because Jesse foolishly told the entire town that was on his agenda. Luke reaches the train before the villains, and tells the passengers and crew they'll have to walk to the nearest station, while he drives it on to meet the merry men. He catches them red-handed, and although Jesse and Frank escape, Cole is captured. In the adaptation, Luke correctly guessed the gang would rob the train, but when he catches it, he finds Jesse and Frank are driving it. Cole isn't with them because they didn't tell him they were robbing it, because they didn't want him to mess it up again. But this also means they either lied to him about what they were going off to do, or just left him behind at Nothing Gulch. Anyway, Cole has decided to rob the train by himself, by derailing it. The cartoon then becomes extra cartoony, as the derailed steam engine has landed on Jesse and Frank, yet they are both alive, and Cole is strong enough to lift the locomotive.
As I led Cole Younger to the Nothing Gulch jail, I could feel how grateful the townfolk were.
That night, the townfolk demand Luke set Cole Younger free, so his cousins won't return to avenge themselves on Nothing Gulch. Even the sheriff resigns. Luke refuses the mob's demands, insisting Cole be put on trial for his crimes. And even though they outnumber him 12 guns to 1 6-shooter, the men agree to back off. In the adaptation, some men try to break Cole out of jail, but blow up the wrong cell wall.
We was only trying to spring Cole Younger so the James gang wouldn't shoot up the town.
Should we go shoot up the town, Jesse?
No, Let's wait for the trial tomorrow.
Luke, acting as the prosecution and the only witness willing to give a testimony against Cole, finds himself accused of hijacking the train without a license, and the jury declare Cole is innocent and let him go. Ashamed of what they've done, the men try to apologize to our hero, but he shuns them for being yellowbellies. In the adaptation, Clem, who is never mentioned by name, is acting as the judge due to the real judge running away off-screen. This would mean, regardless of the verdict, the trial is null and void, as I doubt the hobo has a degree or license to law. Luke's witnesses also run away, so they don't have to testify against Cole. But the biggest change to the scene is that before Luke testifies, Jesse and Frank James ride into the courthouse and escape with Cole.
Head for the woods! That's what Robin Hood would do!
The gang return to Nothing Gulch because it now has some gold in its bank, and to redeem themselves for letting Cole go, the town work together and chase the bandits out of town. Luke joins in, lassos Cole, and then enters a forest to catch Jesse and Frank, who are hiding up a tree a la Robin Hood. In the adaptation, Luke catches the villains in practically the same way, using Jolly Jumper as a decoy, except the James brothers are hiding behind trees rather than sitting on a branch.
As I followed the James gang into the woods, I had a hunch I was riding right into an ambush, but that's part of being a Western hero.
The comic ends with the James gang being thrown out of Texas, tarred and feathered. The episode ends with Jesse and Frank, but not Cole for some reason, being declared guilty by an unqualified bum. In real life, the James Younger gang came to an end in 1882, when Jesse was shot dead by a member of another gang of outlaws who wanted to claim the $5,000 bounty on Jesse's head. Frank James was arrested that same year, but acquitted, and spent the remainder of his life working various honest jobs. Cole Younger was arrested in 1876 and paroled in 1901. He capitalized on his notoriety of being a former legendary outlaw, until he saw the light and repented his criminal past. Of the 26 Hanna-Barbera produced episodes of Lucky Luke, this is one of only 3 where Rin Tin Can, aka Bushwhack, was not added to provide extra comedy via dumb dog shenanigans. However, in the final shot of the episode, he runs into the court looking for Lucky Luke, who has once again disappeared before he can be thanked for saving the day.
Too late. I guess I missed this episode.
I'm poor lonesome cowboy.